Hello, this is Keziah Lewis, and I'm reporting to you from my room. Today, I will tell you about the ancient Egyptians' life. Well, first, let's start with their history and how it was divided. The history was divided into three different parts: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. First, we are going to start off on how Egypt became united. At first, each Egyptian village, the Upper and Lower Egypt, had its own government. Egypt was divided into two large kingdoms called Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. A king named Menes, ruler of Upper Egypt, around 3100 BC, he conquered Lower Egypt, and he was the one who united all of Egypt under one central government. The Old Kingdom was very peaceful and united. It began around 2700 BC and it lasted about 500 years. During the Old Kingdom, rulers built a strong central government in Egypt. The constant fighting in Sumer weakened Sumer. Egypt remained united under one central government during most of its long history. Egypt's unity helped to keep it strong. So if it wasn't for Menes, Egypt might not have been as strong as it was. Now let's tell you who ruled Egypt. The pharaohs always ruled Egypt. They were the head of the government. They were the absolute ruler. Egyptians worshipped the pharaoh as a god. The pharaoh appointed officials to help run the government. The highest official, besides the pharaoh, was called the viziers. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Middle Kingdom. It began around 2050 BC. At about 2300 BC, powerful viziers rebelled against the pharaoh. The Old Kingdom came to an end. For the next 200 years, rebellions and unrest troubled Egypt. A pharaoh named Amenemhet ended the rebellions. Amenemhet's rule began the period known as the Middle Kingdom. During the Middle Kingdom, pharaohs rebuilt Egypt's strong central government, and once again, Egypt was united and they were at peace. Egypt increased its trade also in the Middle Kingdom with other lands during the Middle Kingdom. Trading ships traveled to Mesopotamia, Syria, and other lands. To improve trade, Egyptians built a canal connecting the Nile River to the Red Sea. Now let's talk about the New Kingdom. For many years, natural barriers protected Egypt from all of their invaders. Ramses II fought Hittites for the control of the Middle East. He married a Hittite princess just to save Egypt, because he knew he was not strong enough because he was young when he took a crown. He married a Hittite princess as a peace treaty. But around 1730 BC, invaders from Western Asia attacked Egypt. The invaders were known as the Hyksos. The Hyksos had chariots and bronze weapons, which the Egyptians did not have. The Hyksos easily conquered the Egyptians. They ruled Egypt for about 100 years. But while they ruled Egypt, the Egyptians were learning. The Egyptians learned how to use chariots and bronze weapons that their conquerors had used. In about 1580 BC, an Egyptian prince named Ahmose led a rebellion against the Hyksos. The Egyptians drove the Hyksos from Egypt. That victory began a new period, and that period is called the New Kingdom. One of the great rulers of the New Kingdom was Queen Hatshepsut. She was the first woman to ever rule Egypt. Hatshepsut rebuilt temples destroyed by the Hyksos. She even increased the Egyptian trade, and she brought new wealth to Egypt. At first, they didn't like it because a woman was ruling Egypt. But they got over it because Hatshepsut was doing great things with Egypt. But after she died, her stepson Tutmosis II started to rule after she died. After 20 years after his rule, he destroyed all her temples, except for some, and that's how we know this story. Later, after she died, Hatshepsut and her stepson, the pharaohs built an Egyptian empire through conquest. Pharaohs conquered Palestine, Syria, and even other lands. In time, the Egyptian empire stretched from Egypt to Mesopotamia. Then, Egypt fell down again. It lost its independence. At about 1100 BC, Egypt began to decline in power. Weak pharaohs lost control of the government. Conquered people rebelled, and Egypt lost its empire. Invaders began to attack Egypt once again. The Syrians conquered Egypt in 600 BC, and in 525 BC, the Persians conquered Egypt. Egypt was in a major downfall. After 3,000 years of greatness, Egypt has lost its independence. And that's all we have to say.